News now. Governor Cuomo talked a lot yesterday about the importance of economic development, or as he would put it, jobs, jobs, jobs. Now, one of his proposals is to use the SUNY system to help spur growth in New York. This is actually not a new concept. SUNY Chancellor Nancy Zimpher has been pushing her strategic plan for more than a year now, trying to find ways to spur the cities where SUNY schools are located. And today she was actually joined by Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy to outline the role of state universities moving forward. The former Rochester mayor has been tapped by Cuomo to chair 10 economic regional councils, and he says that SUNY will play a key role in the work of those councils.
So you'll see the presence of SUNY colleges, universities, private colleges, universities, very heavily involved. Why? Because the higher ed with the research backgrounds, the technology, the knowledge, the ideas, they're going to play a major role. And everywhere that we traveled around the state during the campaign, every high spot, or I guess maybe high point economically that you see around the state, somewhere at that table is higher education.
And we're joined now by SUNY Chancellor Nancy Zimpher. Thank you very much for your time, Chancellor.
Thank you, Liz.
And you were with the Lieutenant Governor today at this event.
I was.
He was talking about how SUNY schools are pretty much they really are well situated in terms of anywhere you go in the state, regionally speaking, they're right there. And yet they have not managed to be utilized as economic engines yet. And really, when I say this isn't a new idea, it's not just you. I've been hearing this kind of thing since like Pataki days, and probably prior to that, although that predates me in Albany. So how's this going to work?
Well, the interesting thing is that we have a campus within 30 miles of every New York citizen. So you're right. We are out there. We touch all 62 counties. There are 62 metropolitan areas. We touch them as well. So I think what was missing is a system-wide approach to our impact on economic development. Our campuses really are engaged. And I'll tell you, if we didn't have campuses in these communities, we wouldn't have the major employer. We wouldn't be producing new jobs. We wouldn't be graduating employable students. But what's really new about the SUNY strategic plan, and I think what got the attention of the governor and the lieutenant governor, is that we've been talking about how we can build capacity by collaborating across our campuses in areas where we have deep expertise like energy and healthcare and education. And we're thinking strategically about our business partnerships. So we look, because we are a system, as a chain of activities that go beyond any single institution.
See, the problem, though, is, of course, we also have this $10 billion budget hole.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. Okay. And in the past, there have been tuition increases, and then that increase gets swept to sort of fill the cracks, if you will. You have been arguing, and allies of yours have been arguing, that actually the SUNY system should have the ability, schools should have the ability to raise tuitions on their own and then keep the money, right?
Right.
It didn't go through the last time around. So are we expecting that the governor, has he given you signal that, in fact, in order to empower the system to be able to do what he wants from an economic development standpoint, that he's going to unhinge it from the legislature?
Well, we haven't quite gotten to that level of detail. What I do know in our conversations with the governor's staff, even before he was inaugurated, we had some very, very important conversations that the three legs of the Empowerment Act last year can be attended to in some different ways this year. You heard him talk about, the governor talk about public-private partnerships yesterday. Yeah. That's one of the areas where we asked for regulatory relief. I think in streamlining and consolidating state government, we're going to get better procurement practices, and we may not have to do that legislatively. We ought to start with conversations with these new ways of doing business. But we are left with a concern about the revenue part of what drives SUNY, and what we used to call last year the roadmap is the strategic plan. Now we need the license to drive. So we are going to be talking over the next few days and weeks as the governor crafts his budget about what will help SUNY be this economic driver. What we would hope would be possible is that the cuts that we've realized over the last 3 years, which has been about 30% of our operating budget, quite deep, could have some form of a restoration or a commitment to future funding. We are also very committed to keeping tuition accessible and affordable. That was a huge issue last year. We've learned from that.
Democrats in particular.
Well,
sure.
and you know, the tuition assistance program is critical. So we're kind of on the horns of a dilemma.
Yep.
We know that we have to chin up to the $10 billion deficit. We also know that we need to serve the students that come to our campuses with a high-quality education. So it's too early to call. The budget's not ready, but I feel very good about the fact that we're in conversation with the governor.
And it also should be said that in terms of the bang for your buck, I mean, SUNY is quite affordable. You were just recognized for this, so you should just give a little plug in that.
Well, we had 11 campuses that were identified as the best value in the country. That means affordable tuition and high-quality programs. And what is really great is that, therefore, New York had the largest number of schools identified, 11, and they were all SUNY schools. So we're very proud of that.
So the system obviously is a good buy. Here's the thing. In order for, let's say, arguably, that at the very least, which would actually be a good thing since so many people are slated for cuts, you don't get cut. You remain flat in terms of your funding. Right. Will the system be able to have, because there are layoffs and some schools are actually having to cut people, will the system be healthy enough to realize this new role, or this changed role, if you will, partnership that the lieutenant governor and the governor have set out for you?
I think my answer is one of speed. If we can find a way, a legitimate way, with legislative support and gubernatorial leadership to generate some revenues, we can speed our role in economic development along much faster. We have, we're bursting at the seams. Our enrollments are growing, but the ability to serve our students is limited, largely because of the condition you cited, where our tuition didn't really come back to the system when the tuition was raised. Right. So I think what we'd like to find is a reasonable, fair, accessible way to think about tuition that gives us a bit of a revenue boost in a time when the state cannot meet its obligation.
Now, you actually, this was sort of an early challenge for you. You hadn't been in all that long, right? So you had the trial by fire. Now you're behind you, the trial by fire. So you know going in it's going to be a difficult year, but you have the knowledge of what it was last year. So are you starting early now? Have you met with key stakeholders in the Assembly Democrats, in the Senate, who might actually be able to push this forward this time early, because you know it's a key? And, you know, to have the governor mention it, now he didn't say SUNY empowerment, but he's talking about the role of the SUNY system in the state of the state is clearly a priority for him.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't expect this administration necessarily to adopt the language system of a previous administration, so will we ever hear the word empowerment going forward? But I also think, learning from last year, that's why I've talked about public-private partnerships perhaps moving through the legislative process outside of the budget, procurement moving first through some administrative conversations and then into the legislature for affirmation, which leaves us with revenue issues. Yes, we have been talking to constituents. We learned a lot from last year. We're going to try to apply those lessons. I think it was incredibly unfortunate that last year there was a perception that SUNY was somehow stepping away from its commitment to access. Nothing could be further than the truth. Right. You know, our tuition annually is $4,970, which means for a semester of work at a SUNY four-year college, it's under $2,500. And if that rounds up to almost $5,000 a year, our community colleges are less expensive yet. I mean, we are one heck of a deal for our students. And the worrisome thing is, you can get all these students into our campuses, but, you know, we want them to graduate. We want them to get certificates and associate degrees and then to be employed. Sure. And so we need the wherewithal to do that. So we're going to work really hard to be a partner with the governor and the legislature and our stakeholders.
And it is still, going forward, the empowerment program as it was originally conceived, still the focus is still that? In other words, you're not going to change or decouple anything or change the way...
Well, we've still got a three-legged stool. It's revenue, it's procurement, it's public-private partnerships. Within the revenue, we're talking about what that means for tuition, what that means for what we call state support. And we did learn some lessons last year about what people will support in terms of tuition, and we're going to apply those lessons. But the three-legged stool, still intact. We've just got some new ways to do it.
Do you think that it's going to be a problem with the changeover in power in the Senate? Because last time you had some really key champions, particularly out of the Western New York area, Bill Stokowski, who held up the entire budget because he was hoping so hard that he would get UB 2020. It didn't work eventually. You still have champions. I've talked to all of the lawmakers there are really interested in seeing this move.
Right.
But are you concerned that the Republicans maybe don't have the same focus that the Democrats did on this issue?
I have no reason to believe that. I think they heard the same message that I heard yesterday. What's critical and important to New York's recovery and revitalization is going to take teamwork, and I think the crossroads that the governor identified and the strategies that he brought forward, we all heard it at the same time. So I have every reason to believe that SUNY can be a great partner with the Senate, with the Assembly, of course with the governor's office, with other stakeholders. The power of that common message yesterday to 2,200 people and all those stakeholders was so refreshing to me. I just can't say enough about how inspired I was that we have executive leadership in this state. There's a plan afoot. We want to be a part of it. The governor acknowledged that SUNY can be a part of it. And I expect the legislature to come with that same sentiment.
Well, so does he, clearly.
Right,
he
right.
issued a call for them to do that. So we shall see. Budget is due out in just a couple of weeks, and we will be revisiting with you after that. In the meantime, thank you very much, Chancellor Zimpher, for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Clear.